As part of our drug awareness campaign, we're diving into the surprising world of over-the-counter medications and wellness products. Now, this was a really interesting chat and sometimes very surprising. We were joined by Dr. José Restolho, technical advisor and forensic expert from Eurofins, who helped us uncover what's really hiding behind those innocent-looking labels. From sleeping tablets and CBD oils to diet pills and the latest miracle supplements trending on social media, Jose breaks down how even the legal stuff can fail us on a drug test.
You'll probably find multiple sources of CBD products that you can buy online, including at Amazon. You can buy gummies, oils, whatever you like. You don't have any guarantee that they are regulated or verified, so you can buy products whose THC content is higher than these 2%. And if you get drug tested and if they look for THC, you might get a positive.
We chat about what crew can do to stay sharp, safe and in the know, and why it's so important to understand what it is you're taking. It's eye-opening, practical, and just might save you from a very awkward conversation with your captain. Thank you so much for joining us, Jose, because I know you've been doing a lot of travelling lately, haven't you?
Yes, part of the job. Comes with the package.
So I think it would be a nice place to start would be if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Eurofins.
Right, so I'm Portuguese, as I just mentioned. I'm a chemist by training, although I deviated slightly in my master and PhD towards forensics. I have a PhD in forensic toxicology. And then since 2020, I've been with Eurofins Group. I work mostly with Eurofins Forensic Services in the UK, although recently that changed. I'm also supporting other legal entities within the Eurofins Forensic Division, which covers the whole Europe. And specifically at EFS, at Eurofins Forensic Services, I am the workplace drug testing technical advisor.
So as technical advisor, what do you do? What does that involve?
Well, it can evolve from mapping processes, updating SOPs, doing statements for interpretation and clarifying questions and doubts coming from donors, customers, always having in mind that the end, from our perspective as service providers, is to guarantee that we provide a legally defensible workplace drug testing program and services, because we know things eventually can go wrong. Somebody will challenge a result. So we need to make sure for our customers that everything was done within the standards and best practices that are used at least European-wide.
Cool. And it's for the benefit of everyone, isn't it, to have those best practices in place, even the people being tested?
Yes, especially that. So we want to make sure that all the testing is fair, it's unbiased, and that we have a fair and truthful result.
So we're running our Drug Awareness Week. We have a lot of questions from yachts about drugs, but we're looking at the less obvious drugs today. So we're talking about over-the-counter medications, products that are seemingly harmless or considered normal in our day-to-day life, but they can actually have a really significant impact on our health, can't they? When they're not used correctly or when the yacht has their annual drug and alcohol test, these seemingly harmless products can have quite an impact.
They do. Is there any? Do you like me to start with any particular one, or?
Well, I would like to start with CBD because yes, it's a very topical. And again, we get a lot of questions from yachts about CBD. And I went online earlier, Jose. I went online to just read about what is CBD, and I just couldn't understand the website. I couldn't understand what they were trying to tell me. So can we start at the beginning in simple terms?
What is CBD?
What is CBD?
Well, let me start with what isn't CBD. Unfortunately, with these trends surrounding cannabinoids and cannabis-based products, because they are so trendy right now, CBD, it's not a cure for every single disease. Sometimes people try to, I use CBD for this, I use CBD for that. No, it has medicinal properties, especially against inflammation. It's a very good anti-inflammatory. You will find several cosmetic products and creams, for example, that contain CBD oil, and those properties have been verified. They work. One thing that CBD isn't also is a psychoactive substance, contrary to its cousin, if you want to call it THC, which is the main active ingredient in cannabis when we associate cannabis to drug use. THC has a psychoactive effect. It will cause impairment, will cause feeling good, mood, the munchies, all of that. Yeah. That's all with THC. CBD alone does not make any of those symptoms. Okay. So what we see on the market, and according to legislation, this is fairly the same across Europe. There are some differences with CBD-based products, oils, creams, even edibles that you can find already in the market. They can contain THC. This is a fact. And this is a byproduct of the production of the oil itself. So when you distill the oil from the plant, it always comes with THC. If THC is in the plant, it will come along with CBD, but it should come in much lower concentration. So in the UK, for example, CBD-based products can have up to 2% in weight of THC. And this is the first warning sign. So this tells us that it's not THC free completely. It's like non-alcoholic beer. At least when they started to appear in the market, they were less alcoholic, but they were not 0.0% alcohol.
Okay.
Nowadays you have, but I remember when alcohol-free beer started to hit the market, it still contained like 2%, 1% alcohol. And with the CBD product, that's what's the case. The second problem that we have is what we call unregulated sources. So if you buy, you did it today, and you probably find multiple sources of CBD products that you can buy online, including at Amazon. I think against Amazon, but you can buy gummies, oils, whatever you like. You don't have any guarantee that they are regulated or verified. So you can buy products whose THC content is higher than this 2%. And if you get drug tested and if they look for THC, you might get a positive.
Okay. So would you get a positive with the 2%?
Unlikely, but not impossible.
Okay.
The other issue we have with THC is highly lipophilic. This means it hates water and loves fat, right? So it gets absorbed in our fatty tissue in our body, and then over time slowly gets released into the bloodstream, and eventually it ends up on fluid, in urine, the normal matrices we use for common drug tests. So it can lead to a positive. So if one is using CBD for whatever purpose they tend to use it, they should be careful.
So, first of all, how can crew be careful? What do they need to look out for? Is it the 2%? Is that the magic number?
This would be definitely a magic number, and try to find reputable sources. Try to avoid everything that is on, not everything, but mostly online websites. Sometimes you don't know where things are coming from, and you don't know if they are being regulated or not. The other issue we see, and we see this across Europe, whenever a product does not fall in the category of medication, the control, it's less strict. So unfortunately, some producers take advantage on that and place things on the market. And not that long ago, we had a case where a donor tested positive for THC, argued that it didn't smoke cannabis or use cannabis-based products, but rather CBD gummies, an edible. And they were available on Amazon. Unfortunately, the first warning sign is when you go to the review of the product, and I did that in both Amazon and at the manufacturer's webpage, you see people describing the product as something that is excellent to help them control their anxiety, for example, that they felt much calmer after taking this product. And CBD alone shouldn't provoke that type of effect. That's a warning sign over there.
Okay.
It seems that there is some kind of psychoactive effect, which probably relates to THC.
Enough of a psychoactive effect to have an impact on their day-to-day work, their behavior?
That's the million-dollar question. That's the question that the toxicologist is confronted with every single day. Unfortunately, today it's not yet possible to know, because it would need to individual evaluation. So it depends on how much did the persons use. Are they using this on a very frequent base or just casual use? What type of metabolism do they have? Body weight, all these factors will play a role to see if someone is impaired or not. That's why in the field of, or in the context of workplace drug testing, we run away of the word impairment, because legally speaking, and just purely legally, this is something we as a laboratory cannot prove. What we can prove is that the substance was in the body. But other than that, just by a toxicological test, I'm afraid we can't do much.
That's very interesting. So you mentioned earlier 2% of THC is the magic number, but you said that also crew could fail a drug test on 2%. Can you buy CBD with no THC in it? Is that a silly question?
Theoretically, yes. Not sure the manufacturers will invest in technology that will allow you to produce THC free, at least for the moment.
Okay.
Not saying it won't happen.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? So, essentially, we're saying that CBD is likely to trigger a positive result in a drug test, and so avoid all forms of CBD whilst working on board the boat. And I guess in some countries it's illegal as well.
Yes, you can still find it illegal. Not so much within Europe, but if you go abroad, you can get a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So, advice for crew thinking of using CBD: avoid, find other forms of pain relief, wellness.
And I would add, there is a common misconception among people when it relates to medication and wellness. People tend to look sometimes for natural products because it's natural, it's fine, right? Natural is good. People should be careful with the word natural. Just because they are natural doesn't mean that they are harmless.
Mm.
Don't forget that, well, cannabis is a natural product. It's a plant.
Yeah.
Morphine and heroin, or even cocaine, they are all coming from plants.
Yeah.
And I could
Yeah.
go on with poisons, and
Yeah.
the list is quite long. But long story short, just because it's natural, it's not the same thing as being harmless. People still need to be careful with what they put inside their bodies and the implication of this.
And it's a problem, isn't it? Because it is, certainly in the UK, it's heavily promoted. It's heavily advertised as, like you mentioned earlier, skincare products, the gummies, the oils, and how, in a very positive way, that they do reduce anxiety, that they do this. But you can't necessarily always trust these advertising campaigns, and they target the mass. They're not targeting the individual, so you don't know how it's going to affect you personally.
Yes.
Until you failed the drug test and lost your job, which by then
everything went wrong.
Exactly. So, like to talk about over-the-counter medications. Again, often seen as harmless. You can buy them in the pharmacy, so, where's the harm? But what are the common risks that crews should be aware of when using over-the-counter medications? I mean, things like sleeping pills.
And that's a big problem because you are talking about crews that are aboard a ship going probably nice places like the Caribbean or places away from Europe where sometimes regulation is less strict. So although across Europe, UK included, to buy what we call benzodiazepines like of diazepam and other sleeping pills, you need a prescription. There are countries where, well, you don't. You just go to the pharmacy and buy a box or two or whatever you want without any type of control. But just because they are over the counter doesn't mean that they are harmless. A good example of that is our good friend paracetamol. It's fairly safe as long as you don't exceed the daily dosage, which is for an adult normally 4 grams of paracetamol per day. If you go beyond that dose, you can have really serious issues. And the same thing with over-the-counter, with regular over-the-counter. One that you find, for example, in the UK is cocodamol. It's a mix of paracetamol and codeine. Codeine is an opiate. It comes from the poppy, just like morphine. The problem
really
is,
surprised me when I found that out. That really surprised me because that's very addictive.
It's addictive. Well, it's an opiate. First of all, it's addictive, not in the extent of morphine or heroin. That's not what I'm saying. It can cause addiction. It's very efficient in the treatment of cough, which is true. That's why it is sold. But when in the body, it gets metabolized into morphine. And if you do a urine test, you are taking cocodamol, you most likely will test positive for morphine.
No.
Don't worry. We, as a service provider, and also from a guidelines point of view, we have belts and braces in place to deal with this type of situation. That's why normally when a collection is done for a drug test, we ask for medication if the person is using any type of medication, and they should declare it. And then a medical revision officer, not a toxicologist like myself, but a medical doctor, will evaluate if there is a valid prescription, for example, to tackle this. But again, just because it's medication or just because it's over the counter doesn't make it safe or harmless.
No. Wow. And then, of course, mixing it with alcohol or other medications or drugs, and it just amplifies, doesn't it?
Yes. And again, if people would take the time, which normally they don't, I do it out of professional hazard to read the IFUs, the little pieces of paper that come inside the box. It will say with some medication like sleeping pills, if you are taking this medication, don't drive, for example, or don't operate heavy machinery, or please be aware that there might be interaction with other medication that you might be using right now. please speak with your pharmacist or with your doctor, especially to avoid those situations.
Read the labels, read the ingredients. I think we're all very guilty of trusting.
Yes.
If you can buy it over the counter, it's safe. But again, this might be a silly question, but mentioned paracetamol earlier. Is the paracetamol and the ingredients in the paracetamol in the UK the same as the paracetamol that you buy, for example, in the US or in the Caribbean? Or can there be hidden ingredients in there?
There can be not hidden, but different ingredients in the formulations. Although the active ingredient is exactly the same, is paracetamol, or as the Americans like to say, acetaminophen, it does not mean that pill will have the exact same effects because the formulation is different, the bioavailability will be different. So the way that active ingredient reaches where it should reach within our body might be different as well.
Okay. But the physical reaction to, for example, allergies, or you mentioned earlier about not driving heavy machinery, could those warnings differ from country to country?
They can, yes. Yeah. If the formulation changes and if they use other excipients to make the pill, there might be higher risk or lesser risk of allergies, for example.
Wow. I mean, I feel like we could do an entire podcast on each of these little topics, trying to bunch them all into one chat. Supplements. Let's talk about supplements. Supplements, weight loss drugs, performance enhancers. I know, massive. I watched local news last night, and there was an article about weight loss drugs and a woman who had bought Ozempic, which is very topical at the moment, and she bought it online.
Terrible.
She took it and she ended up passing out in front of her family, being rushed to hospital, and it turned out that what she bought was pure insulin. It was just pure insulin, and so she nearly died by trusting this website. I mean, it's terrifying.
Well, Ozempic is a topic by itself. I mean, not that long ago, a week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, here in Portugal, there was this news piece about the whole black market surrounding Ozempic, with people buying from completely untrusted sources with no trustability whatsoever. They just buy an ampoule with a transparent liquid and they assume it's Ozempic.
Yeah.
So if everything goes well, it's just water, worst case scenario. Yeah. Or, as you said, insulin, and things can have a dramatic conclusion.
Yeah.
Supplements, it's a hot topic. It's something that we see on a daily basis whenever our customers ask us to run an anabolic steroids panel as well. Some customers, especially if they are linked to the public sector, they have this included in their drug testing program. And we see more than we would like cases where I genuinely believe that the positive result for anabolic steroids is the result of involuntary contamination by supplement. I'm not the only one thinking this. There are actually published articles in the scientific literature on the topic. And the sources of contamination can be from contamination in the production line, because they produce different types of supplements for different markets. In some markets, some of these substances, testosterone derivatives, for example, are legal and people can use them. And then they produce supplements to markets where it is illegal, but they use the same line and they do not properly decontaminate the line, the production line. Or because, and this is something that we see on the rise, some supplements that are marketed as only natural products that promise wonderful results for muscular mass gain or performance enhancers, but they haven't declared ingredients, which may include anabolic steroids.
They don't declare ingredients?
No. If you don't look, you don't find.
Wow.
If they are not tested, fortunately in the UK, there is a list, I hope I'm saying right, it's Sport Safe. It's a list of supplements and performance enhancers that are sold in the UK that have been laboratory tested. And there is assurance that they do not contain any forbidden substance, the likes of anabolic steroids. But again, we know that, and from reading the statements of the donors that get caught, they either went on holidays and bought from somewhere else, or a friend at the gym gave them a milkshake.
Yeah, wow. Undeclared ingredients. I mean, that blows my mind. So how do crew know? How do people know how to buy? I mean, there's a trend at the moment for self-tanning capsules, for example. Now, how do you know if that's safe? Or how do you know that that's not going to negatively impact a drug test?
It's always difficult to navigate that question. I think people should play it on the safe side. If they have doubts about it, don't risk it. I think that's the best advice one can give. not necessarily with the self-tanning pills, but with sports supplements. Buy from trusted sources. Go find the list and look for those brands. Don't go online. Yes, you probably can get them cheaper online, but is the risk worthy?
Yeah.
The same thing with CBD. I mean, you have trusted sources. But again, if you go online, you can find hundreds probably of suppliers, some of them most likely cheaper and with quite aggressive pricing strategies. Is it worthy?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess if in doubt, if you are looking at taking a supplement, because some of us need supplements. So, but if in doubt, talk to your GP, talk to somebody who is medically qualified and who can assess you on an individual
Yes.
basis.
Get counseling for sure.
Yeah.
Play it safe.
Yeah.
Again, what I'm saying is I'm not painting that all these supplements and so forth are a monster, but rather be careful.
Yeah. Know what you're taking.
Unfortunately, I don't fully agree, but this is a fact. There is this approach from doping. So the doping labs and doping related labs, especially the ones certified by WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, they use this motto that they are not responsible for whatever you put inside your body. That's your responsibility. And claiming that you are unaware, it's not a viable excuse if you test positive. So it's not 100% fair.
No,
but
especially where these products are being promoted, and wellness trends are promoted very heavily online, and it's the rise of the health, fitness, and biohacking trends promoted by influencers that are promoted as being natural, clean, clinically backed, but they're actually not. They're not tested, they're not regulated, and they don't know that they're safe.
Even last week I had a conversation with a medical doctor about Ozempic. I asked for her opinion out of curiosity, and she was telling me that yes, the results are there. The person can lose weight quite fast, but there is no long-term study on the impact on one's health.
It's interesting.
But again, as you said, social media play a very strong role for the good and the bad.
Yes. And you get a lot of, I listened to somebody on social media the other day promoting and really pushing Ozempic specifically. It sounds like we're targeting Ozempic, but that she was really pushing it, and she's not medically qualified to do that. And it has, of course, it has a huge benefit to those who are obese and need to lose weight for their own health. But when you're buying them online and you're not understanding what you're buying, you're trusting, and people just take advantage, don't they? People want to make a quick sale, and you have to do your research.
And you have to be careful.
Is there a risk with these trends, these performance enhancers, these supplements? Can they impact the drug test?
Depends on the drug test itself. So if, for example, your program covers also anabolic steroids, most likely there is an impact. If not, I would dare to say no. Probably the risk would be higher with the likes of CBD and some over-the-counter medication, both either in the UK or abroad. But again, if someone tells you it's completely risk-free, run away the fastest you can, because they are lying. There is no such thing as risk-free. There is always a risk. Even if it's very, very small, it's there. It's not zero.
There was a social media post that I saw the other day, and it was a nutritionist who's an influencer. She's quite a big name, and she did this post absolutely horrified about deepfake AI clip that had been posted using her face to promote these products and to promote these lifestyle regimes and to promote all these wellness trends. And she then found out and obviously did this post to say it wasn't actually her. So again, it sounds so simple, but you just can't even trust what you think you're seeing.
The dangers of internet and
dangers of internet. You don't know who you're buying from. Yeah. I think lastly, it would be interesting to close on what are the most important things crews should consider when traveling with medication. We mentioned earlier that CBD oil is illegal in certain countries. If crew are carrying prescription drugs or medical equipment, what do they need to consider when, for example, crossing different jurisdictions?
I'm assuming that they will know beforehand where they are going. So just Google it quickly to see if there is any specific regulations, any specific prohibition to avoid serious matters in some countries that can be quite strict and it can be misinterpreted.
Mm.
They might not see it as an innocent mistake, which is what it is. And so they should always, play safe, Google it, spend 5 minutes on the internet and just double
Mm.
check it just to be on the safe side. They might need a medical declaration, for example.
Yeah. I think the overall message of today is do your research. Don't believe everything you read, or don't trust these social media posts. Don't believe everything that you're seeing. Do your research, read the ingredients, understand what it is you're taking, and understand the impact that these products could have on the drug tests and ultimately your career
And your life.
and your life.
Your well-being. In doubt, search for proper help, a pharmacist, GP. Don't be afraid to ask. Play safe.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, more than losing a job, you can lose your life quality, or ultimately your life.
So interesting, Jose. Honestly, I've said this a few times in other chats. I could talk about this for hours. I really could with this. It's so in depth. There's so many things that you have to think about and so many areas to look at. I think maybe we need to do another one of these in the future.
If I can be of help, just let me know.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your busy schedule.
No worries, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.